Well, hello traders and investors. I'm LA Little and this is your weekly NeoTA Wrap. We take a look at these markets and we're doing it from a neoclassical perspective. That means each time we take a look at the markets, we ask ourselves what happened last week, what does it tell us about the coming ones. I do this show every Sunday evening. This broadcast started before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's archived on YouTube and it's under the channel LA Little. And if you want to subscribe, all you got to do is reach up in the right hand corner, hit the subscribe button. It's free, it's easy. It's a way to stay up with what's happening. As far as what's happening, it was a big day up on Friday. These guys got it going. Russell up 2 1/4, 1 3/4 on the Nasdaq, on the NDX, 1.5 or so on the S&P. You actually had silver and gold sell down. All right, the same thing here with the bonds. So all the safety stuff went the other way. All the risky stuff went back up. You had the complete reversal here in the DAX. Big gains pretty much all around the board on these markets. Speaking of the markets, let's take a look at them. Let's pull up the NDX to start with. Actually, we'll just go to the S&P 500. Now, the S&P 500, although it fell off the screen on Friday, we did have a bar that was sitting over here that was a swing point low. And that swing point low measured from about something like that. And essentially that was a retest, regenerate zone that was taking place. And as the market came up to that area, you know, it respected it. It came up, and I'm going to draw it in a little bit more closely. It was something like that, actually. It came up to that area, tested into it, right? Tried to reverse out of it, tried to generate back down, which is what it's supposed to try and do. It was way more than 6 bars, right? But in the end, it pops over the top, and that isn't what should happen in this scenario. And so what it's telling us is this strength that we're seeing off the bottom, even though it's on the angle, it's not horrible, but it's an elevated angle. This strength is more than was expected, and this market can actually push even higher. If we pull over the weekly chart and take a look at it, we also had a retest regen on it, and that retest regen was the top here, there, and it just slightly got over the top on Friday. So if we look at the numbers here, that top was 2020 and we closed it at 2022. And so once again, the market does what is unexpected, because in this case you also had 6 bars across. So typically you're not going to get to the other side, and you're definitely not going to get over the top. But it did. And then when it does, it just tells you, hey, you know, you're not, even though we could get the push back down now, right, given this extended move to the top side, the angular move is quite extensive, right? I mean, that's a vertical move to the top side. Even though we've had that, and maybe we get up here and test this little bar, you know, the move down is not going to be like that. You know, maybe you get something like this, but you're going to have some strength. You got broad strength here, and it's just not simply going to go away again. And so, yes, the market one more time has proved that it's bigger than you and it's bigger than me, and it's going to do what it wants to. And what it wants to do is go higher still. Nasdaq, if we look at it, the Nasdaq now, this is the broad composite. The Nasdaq was playing with this bar. It finally gets over it in a pretty good way. And so the Nasdaq's going to try to hit the swing point high that's right there, and then potentially at some point here get up to the swing point low again, up in this resistance zone that you see above. You don't have any, there's nothing but a gap here, so you don't have any significant resistance in between here. So the Nasdaq can run right on up to the top there if and when it gets some juice, some serious juice of its own. Same thing here on the NDX. Now the NDX has been the big laggard. This is what kept the markets elevated last year. This year hasn't been able to do so. It's right at the top of this big breakdown bar. If it gets over it, you got a swing point high there, and then you got the lows, the resistance zone. Same story, nothing in between. So if you get over this, we could get some more juice to the top side. And the Russell, finally, if we look at it, on the Russell, pushing back up to that big 2% down bar. Swing point low is way up here. The Russell can't get up to that area. If we look back over here, we haven't talked about this. We'll go back to the weeklies. On the weekly, you got this area. That's the retest, regenerate zone. on the Russell. If we look at it on the NDX, you got the same thing here. Actually, you got two places here that make sense to give it a tough spot. One is this retest regenerate zone here. The other is this high of the big volume low, and that's where we're at now. So again, you got vertical moves taking place right into still steep resistance. So we may get some sort of a pushback as early as this week. You know, this Fed is this week. You got Bank of Japan to start out the week. You got Canada. You got Switzerland. You've got a lot of material coming out this week, as well as a lot of data points. And so we just may see these markets shake it up a little bit, get some sort of a pullback. But as I said at the top of the show here, I think it's going to be hard to get these markets for the bottom just to fall out of them at this particular point in time. If we look overseas, you know, Europe, in particular Germany, we had Draghi on Thursday, give them everything they wanted. The mistake was in his press conference, he said, you know, we may not need to raise or lower rates anymore. And boy, they did a big reversal off of that, right? And then they spiked the volume on that day as well. Well, Friday, they turned it right back around. They head right back the other way. But what I would point out to you here on the daily is you're still inside this swing point high. So you tested it back to the downside. You still haven't got over it. You tested back to the downside with some volume. You also tested at the top side with some volume. This looks like it's going to try to poke its head over the top, and that may be about all it gets for now. But you know, a reversal of a reversal is what took place, and that's again strength showing up in that particular index. On the weekly, you got this swing point low. You're testing right into the top of it now. The top of it here, 97.88. You close it at 98.31. Let me make sure I got that right. Yeah, 97.88. And so you close just over it. Now the question will be is, can you stay on the top side of it, or do you come back into this zone? And let me see elsewhere. I don't know that there's anything else that really grabbed my attention in terms of weekly charts. Here's the Nikkei coming back. They're all coming back. You know, these weaker indexes, which is pretty much everything else around the world, coming back into their retest regenerate bars on the bearish side. And if we look at all of them, right, Nikkei, here's the Shanghai index. If we look at the Hong Kong index, pull it to a weekly as well, coming into that swing point low. And you see it even in Europe in some of the weaker ones like Switzerland. You know, if we take this, pull it back, it's trying to come into that swing point low. And so that's what you're seeing pretty much around the world. Before we go, let's take a look for my friends in Australia. Let's see what we got over here. Let me get the Australian index. And on a daily, got a nice little push going. Let's see. Yeah, so they're doing the retest regen here as well. So we're on this bar. That's the retest regen. You got to get over it, and if you do, you got a shot to get over some swing point highs as well and turn that trend finally. Finally, let's go up to my friends in Canada, the Toronto exchange. And so Toronto, a nice big rally. Now it's kind of interesting to me because Toronto's getting this rally as part of a huge move higher in their currency. So maybe a strong currency is a good thing, not a bad thing. Doing the same thing here. Bearish, retest, regenerate on the swing point low that was broken. And again, if you get over this area, you're going to have broken swing point highs on the way up and change trend. So in all the markets outside of the U.S. and outside of the stronger ones in Europe, you're getting bearish retest regenerates starting to take place. Here's the CACs. I'm going to look at it on the weekly, and it's doing the same thing on the weekly. So all of them doing the same thing on the weekly time frames. One more quick thought here. I want to pop over quickly to the OX markets. You've got a lot of strength that has been shown and continues to be shown in the euro. And it makes me wonder if, in fact, these currencies are going to get a little bit of problems as these these other currencies vis-a-vis the euro continue to hold strong. So, you know, a swing point high is way up here. If the euro ever wanted to, it could actually trade back to the swing point low and still be a bearish trend. And so I'm really curious to see if we get a much bigger move here, and if the Fed doesn't move on interest rates come this Wednesday, we may in fact see the euro strengthen even more. Here's the Canadian dollar I was just talking about. Nice big fast push to the top side. That is a big move. You went from 67.71 up to 74. Excuse me, 75. So 8 points. That's 11-12% in a currency in a couple of weeks. Over in the so anyway, going back to the currency on the euro, if the euro does gain more strength and the dollar gets weaker, I suspect that's going to eat into the European equities. That is not what Draghi ordered. On the flip side, you might say, hey, you know, this is like we saw back in December, where now the green light is on, where the Fed could actually raise rates. Nobody expects a rate rise on Wednesday, and if they did, it'd be a shocker, and I bet that would push our markets back down. Moving over to gold, you know, gold has been in this trading range, even though it's gotten over it. It hasn't given it up. You know, it's tried 2 or 3 times now to get over that range. That range is about that area. Gold still wants to try to come back into the bottom of this range and potentially, eventually, widen that range. So, you know, if you're playing this gold market, just realize, you know, even though it's bullish on this time frame, it's bullish on the weekly time frame, and you got an you got an over/under on the prior bar, and you traded inside on this bar. Even though it's got this this nice big range move to the top side, you know, it's still got to get over a swing point high to break and turn sideways, at least on the long term. But overall, the gold market does look to be changing, but these bottoms, when they take place, they take time. So even though you've had, you know, this big run, and we're talking a 20% run to the upside, you had roughly a 50%, about 45% decline. So don't expect all of this to be gained back in just a matter of a few short months. It's going to take time, right? This market will turn eventually as it continues to digest and create some sort of a bottom, right? A rounded bottom here on the market. So, you know, as it does that, it's going to take time, and you're going to see a lot of chop as a result of it. I don't know that there's much more to tell you in terms of these markets. TLT starting to break down again on the weekly. It's coming back into a swing point high. You know, a bullish retest regen here could bring you all the way to the lows. So again, just like on the gold market, you've got a lot of room, even though the trend in this is starting to look like it's going that way. Okay, well, it's going to be an interesting week. Bank of Japan first thing up. Canadian, U.S., and Swiss, all central banks giving us prognosis and comments, and then some data mixed in. We've got kind of the last of the earnings season. We got Oracle, FedEx, and a few others. And you've got a market now that has gone vertical off the bottom in need of a pullback. So don't be surprised if you see one this week. That's it for tonight. I will join you again tomorrow, and we'll do it again, and we'll concentrate on where this market wants to go this week. Have a great one. I'll see you then. Take care. Good night.